Chapter 1. Over 5 years of marriage, every time my husband left to be with his first love, he would sign another property over to me. Once I had accumulated 99 properties in my name, my husband finally noticed something had changed about me. There were no tears, no scenes, no desperate pleas for him to stay. I simply selected the finest villa in Grey Hollow, prepared the property transfer agreement, and waited for his signature. The man signed without hesitation, though for the first time a trace of tenderness crept into his voice. "When I get back, I'll take you to see the fireworks." I tucked the agreement away obediently and gave a quiet hum of agreement. What I kept to myself was the truth about what he had just signed. It was our divorce papers. On the office television, a news segment was airing about Celeste Harlow's return to the country. The man's eyes never left the screen. He didn't so much as glance down when he took the property transfer agreement from my hands and scrawled his name across it. Villa number 1 in Edgewood, a property in Grey Hollow that no amount of money could guarantee you. Yet in Bennett Crane's heart, it meant nothing at all. The same way I meant nothing to him. When the segment ended, his mood had visibly lifted. He twirled the pen between his fingers as he passed the agreement back, a teasing note in his voice. "That must be over 60 houses I've signed over to you by now. You've become quite the little heiress." The joy bubbling up in his tone had nothing to do with congratulating me. He was happy only because his first love was returning. I stood in front of him and nodded simply. The Edgewood villa overlooks the sea. I'm very fond of it. What I did not tell him was that this was actually the 100th property he had transferred to my name. Years ago, Bennett had pursued me relentlessly, and I turned him down 99 times. His devotion had seemed unbreakable, so after the 100th confession, I finally married him. But that devotion proved short-lived. It lasted only until the day Celeste first came back. That was the day of our first wedding anniversary. I had been sitting in the warm glow of the candlelight dinner Bennett had arranged himself, waiting eagerly for him to walk through the door. Instead, all that arrived was a property transfer agreement and a single line of apology. "Sorry, Rosalind. I missed our anniversary. Will you forgive me?" The heavy scent of an unfamiliar perfume clung to him, but I swallowed my questions and forgave him for the first time, my voice barely above a whisper. In the name of fairness, I resolved to grant him exactly 99 forgivenesses over the course of our marriage. But then came the second time, the third, the fourth. Across 5 years together, he abandoned me again and again to keep his first love company. Eventually he began offering me a property before he even walked out the door, an advance payment for his absence. From the first, all the way to the 99th. Every single time, I forgave him. And now, we had reached exactly 100. Bennett, after this time, there is nothing left to forgive. The thought loosened something inside me, and I looked at him with a calm, released smile. Bennett went still for a moment, then dropped his gaze and looked away. A flicker of reluctance passed through his eyes, I caught it clearly. Then, with the faintest hesitation, he said, "Wait for me to come back. I'll take you to see the fireworks." In the past, even the smallest show of softness from him would have fed the fantasy that I could still win him over. I would have wept and pleaded, only to spiral into despair afterward. Because Bennett would always peel my fingers away one by one, leaving behind a single cold word, lunatic. Thankfully, I had already played the lunatic 99 times. Now the 100 were complete. There was no reason to keep deceiving myself any longer. Because buried within the stack of contracts I had just handed him, I had slipped in a divorce agreement. Bennett. In 30 days, we would be strangers. Chapter 2. 25 days left. Over the past 5 days, the man's typically barren social media had been brimming with activity. During the day they fed pigeons together in the square, at night they watched float parades from the observation deck of the amusement park hotel. I hadn't missed a single step of their journey together. As for the promise he had made to me, I was certain it had slipped his mind entirely. I got up and started packing my bags, scattering a chaotic mess across the floor. Then a call came in from Bennett's assistant. "Madam, please don't forget, there's a fireworks show at Lover's Point tonight at 8. If anything goes wrong, Mr. Crane will have my head." In 8 years of marriage to Bennett, only his assistant had ever addressed me as Madam. He was the sole person who knew about my marriage to Bennett. Making things difficult for the assistant was the last thing I wanted, so I agreed to go. But when I actually set off for Lover's Point, a strange daze washed over me. 5 years earlier, right after Bennett and I were first married, he had surprised me with a secret fireworks display at this very spot, and it was the assistant who had quietly let me in on it then, too. Now, 5 years later, I was headed to the same place. My heart, though, could not have been more different. By the time I arrived near Lover's Point, the area was already packed with tourists. Members of the media were scattered through the crowd as well. A suspicion stirred in me. Worried I had made a mistake, I dialed Bennett's number. All I got in return was an endless busy signal. I dialed again. I couldn't even say what I was hoping for. But the calls refused to connect, and Bennett was nowhere in sight. I glanced at the time, nearly 8 o'clock. A voice in the crowd called out, "The fireworks are about to start. Mr. Crane arranged this whole show for his madam. We're just lucky bystanders crashing the party." I went still. Bennett had always maintained the public image of an unmarried man. The madam these people were talking about could not possibly be me. It had to be someone else. I knew the best vantage point for the fireworks was at the northernmost tip of Lover's Point. Since I was already here, I figured I might as well go have a look. The fireworks themselves were blameless, after all. The problem was the sheer number of people. The surging crowd swept me forward until I was pressed right up to the front. And there, finally, I saw Bennett. He stood in the prime viewing spot, Celeste wrapped tightly in his arms. Fireworks had already begun to blossom across the night sky, burst after brilliant burst. The thunderous booms rang through my ears. Beneath the roar of the crowd and the explosions overhead, I heard Bennett pour his heart out to Celeste in a tender confession. A reporter thrust a microphone towards Celeste and asked, "Madam, what is your answer?" Bennett held Celeste gently by the shoulders, his face alight with anticipation as he gazed at her. Celeste shyly accepted the microphone and had barely parted her lips to speak, when her eyes met mine across the crowd, and so did Bennett's. Bennett froze. The name escaped him involuntarily, Rosalind. In that instant, all of Lover's Point seemed to fall silent. Even the crack and thunder of the fireworks faded into nothing. Every eye had locked onto the single name he had spoken, and onto me, the woman he was staring at. Celeste glanced at me, raised an eyebrow, and turned to him. "Who is she?" Bennett licked his lips, visibly scrambling for a way to salvage the moment. I smiled, meeting the gaze of every onlooker, and answered, "My name is Rosalind Thatcher, and I am Mr. Crane's." Bennett lurched forward to stop me, but the word already on my lips was, "Cousin." The moment the word landed, the fingers that had been digging into my palm slowly unclenched. "My aunt sent me to check whether my new sister-in-law is pretty. Did I give you all a fright?" Relief washed over Bennett's face, and he gave me a satisfied nod. He had never wanted my identity revealed in public, and my mother-in-law felt exactly the same way. So whenever the two of us went out together, she insisted I call her auntie. 5 years of addressing her that way had turned into the perfect cover story, prepared long before anyone knew it would be needed. The fireworks show carried on, and no one spared me another glance. Then the heavens turned cruel, a heavy rain began to fall without warning. Bennett shoved through the crowd in a panic. "Celeste is delicate, she can't get soaked. Please, let us through." He shielded Celeste with his body as he ushered her into the waiting car. And left me standing there, completely alone. The rain cut into my skin, yet I felt no chill. Maybe 5 years inside this marriage had simply numbed me to it. Chapter 3. I went home and took a hot shower. When I stepped out, Bennett was in the living room. He paused for a beat, then actually thanked me. "Still, I appreciate you covering for me back there. We do have a secret marriage, after all. If you'd said the truth right then, it would have been terrible for Celeste's image. Later. I'll find the right time to go public with us." I didn't bother reminding him that soon enough, there would be nothing left to go public about. This marriage was already reaching its end. It was better to act as though it had never existed in the first place. That would be easier on both of us. Then, almost as an afterthought, he thought to show some concern. "By the way, what were you doing there?" I smiled and held his gaze for a long time without saying a word. Only when I saw his eyes start to drift did I answer, "Marcus Webb invited me." That was when it finally dawned on him. Tonight's fireworks show was a promise he had originally made to me. But he had been so wrapped up in his sweet moments with Celeste that the promise had vanished from his mind completely. "I'm sorry. Next week." "No, next week won't work, I have a business trip." "Next month, then." "I'll definitely take you." I shook my head gently. "We'll see when the time comes." Pleased by what he took for understanding, Bennett drew me into a soft embrace. Never before had his arms around me felt so utterly cold. After that day, Bennett left on his business trip, just as he had said. Only he brought Celeste along with him. In their free time they went on candlelight dinners and wandered through museums in the neighboring province. They ate at the roadside seafood shack, a place he had always refused to visit with me. His reason, given to me, had been blunt: "A CEO eating at a place like that? It's beneath my dignity." But around Celeste, Bennett shed every trace of status. He was just an ordinary man, hopelessly in love. 3 days remained on the countdown. Bennett finally came home. During the 2 weeks he was away, I hadn't reached out to him a single time. He looked around the immaculate villa, and something seemed to register. Perhaps for the first time, the 5 years of effort I had poured into keeping our home together. "Honey, you've worked hard," he told me. 5 years, and I could not recall the last time that word had left his mouth. "I was going to take you to see fireworks the day after tomorrow, but there's been a ban lately." I could tell the truth behind his words. He simply no longer wanted to take me to see fireworks. Celeste had probably said something to him. Forget it then. Bennett blinked, clearly caught off guard that I would let it go so easily. "You really don't mind?" In the past, I would have screamed at him like a woman unhinged, demanding to know why he could never follow through on a single promise he made to me. But his hollow promises no longer had any hold on me. "It's just fireworks. We'll survive without them." Just like Bennett himself, truth be told, I would survive without him too. A long silence hung between us before he spoke again. "Then the day after tomorrow, I'll go with you to check out the Edgewood estate. I heard there will be floating lanterns that evening. You can see them perfectly from the estate in Edgewood." I glanced at my phone. According to the calendar, the day after tomorrow was Valentine's Day. On a day that significant, would he actually show up for me? He was just trying to pacify me. "Don't you need to be with Celeste that day?" His expression went rigid for a second before he recovered. "I've spent so much time with her lately. It's your turn now." The words were barely out before he seemed to hear how absurd they sounded, and his head dipped with guilt. But I didn't call out the lie. I simply played along, keeping up the performance beside him. As it happened, that was the very day our divorce would take effect. Quite a fitting date, when I thought about it. Chapter 4. 1 day left in the countdown. For the past 2 days, Bennett hadn't appeared at all. He had been at Celeste's side the entire time, most likely comforting her. Still, each night he would share random little things with me. Celebrity gossip, stray cats spotted on the sidewalk, jokes he'd found amusing on social media. We talked like any ordinary couple living in separate places, exchanging the mundane details of our days. And yet, in 5 years of marriage, Bennett and I had never once communicated this way. Why he had suddenly started doing this was beyond me, and I had no desire to figure it out. For the past 3 days I had been busy with the move, packing my belongings piece by piece and shipping everything to Driftwood. I also met with the agency to finalize rental contracts for all 100 properties under my name. Eventually, my activity caught his attention. That evening, he called. "Marcus told me you've been moving things out." I kept my voice light and casual. "Yeah. Didn't you say we were heading to Edgewood? I like it there." Bennett went quiet for a moment, then said, "If we go to Edgewood and set off fireworks privately, that should be fine." I shook my head, letting a hint of humor into my tone. "No need. You'll end up getting arrested." He seemed to relax slightly at that. "Then tomorrow night, head straight to Edgewood and wait for me there." I hummed an agreement, just as a notification lit up my phone. Flight booking confirmed. Bennett, as though something had pricked at his instincts, repeated himself, "You have to wait for me." I gave him my word, "Okay." But when the next night came, he still didn't show. Marcus called with an apologetic explanation. Bennett was tied up in a meeting and would be running a little late. Meanwhile, on social media, Celeste was releasing floating lanterns from a ferry, and Bennett was standing right behind her. I checked the time. 4 hours until my flight departed. The divorce agreement would take effect in just 2 hours. Telling him the news face to face was a chance I probably wouldn't get. Countdown, 3 hours. I stood inside the villa Bennett had given me, looking out at the river through the window. One by one, floating lanterns drifted downstream toward the open sea. I found myself wondering which one he and Celeste had set afloat together. Remembering the promise he had made just yesterday, a laugh escaped me. If he knew this was the last time I would ever wait for him to keep a promise, would he drop everything and come back? I walked back into the room and stared at the small suitcase sitting in the living room. I didn't own much to begin with. And in this place, I owned even less. This villa was nothing more than compensation for the 100th time he had wounded me. There was a certain poetry in departing from here. Countdown, 2 hours. A congratulatory message arrived from my lawyer. "Congratulations, Miss Thatcher. Happy divorce. I'll have someone deliver the divorce decree to you." Countdown, 1 hour. The decree was in my hands. With that single document, my marriage was finished. I picked up my suitcase and headed for the door. Traffic on the highway to the airport was sluggish. Sitting in the car, I turned my head, and there was Bennett, driving in the opposite direction, racing toward Edgewood. I lowered my gaze, understanding that this brief moment of passing each other by was our forever. But then Bennett slammed on his brakes and looked over at me. Chapter 5. At first I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but after steadying myself, there was no mistaking it. Bennett had pulled his car to a stop. Right there on the highway. He flung open the door and came striding toward me. His palm struck the taxi window, and I could see his mouth forming words, shouting something I couldn't make out. The soundproofing was too good, not a single word reached me. The driver glanced back, looking bewildered. "Miss, want me to lower the window so you two can talk? It's incredibly dangerous to be stopped on the highway like this." I shook my head. "No need. Just ignore him." Bennett kept pounding on the glass, thud, thud, but I refused to spare him even a glance. The spectacle dragged on until the traffic police arrived and hauled him away, and only then did it finally end. It was only once he was being led off, hidden from view by the wall of cars gridlocked on the highway, that I allowed myself to watch. Through the curtain of rain, his expression was unmistakable. So he really could be that desperate over me. But I already gave you a chance, Bennett. You were the one who threw it away. The jam cleared quickly, and before long we were moving again. I made it to the airport with barely any time to spare. What I hadn't anticipated was being stopped at the check-in counter. I'm sorry, ma'am. Due to weather conditions, your flight has been cancelled. You may reschedule or request a refund. I turned toward the windows. The moon hung bright and high, without a single cloud marring the sky. So planes only take off during thunderstorms now? The staff member held her professional smile firmly in place and delivered a rehearsed response. I'm sorry, ma'am. That is the notification we received. There is nothing we can do. I wasn't about to take my frustration out on them, so I nodded. Then let's reschedule. A quick look at availability showed every flight to Driftwood was booked solid, all except the 7 o'clock departure tomorrow morning. It was already late, and going back out seemed like more trouble than it was worth, so I asked whether the airport had somewhere I could rest for the night. Everything proceeded without a hitch. The staff even set me up in a premium VIP lounge. Their politeness bordered on suspicious. A quiet unease stirred inside me. But every time I pressed them, the answer was the same: this is just a courtesy for the inconvenience caused to your travel. I had no choice but to take their word for it. Then Bennett appeared in the lounge doorway, looking as though he had sprinted the entire way here. And suddenly it all clicked: the grounded flights, the sold-out tickets, the VIP treatment. Every last bit of it was Bennett's handiwork. Chapter 6. He struggled to force the corners of his mouth upward in front of me. Too afraid that a full smile would send me running, he allowed himself only the faintest, most cautious curve. Rosalind, didn't we agree to spend tonight together? Why are you leaving? Never before had I seen him tread so carefully around me. If I strained to remember, maybe there had been a time, but I would have to rewind years and years to find it. All the way back to the very beginning of his 100 confessions. The first time he told me he loved me, he carried the same hesitance. Every glance, every small gesture was a test, measuring how I would react. As if he truly cared about me. As if he truly loved me. Maybe it was real back then, and maybe what I'm seeing now is real too. But too many years and too many rounds of forgiveness stand between that moment and this one. Reaching for his so-called sincerity again just seemed like a waste. I tried to twitch the corner of my mouth into some polite acknowledgement. But even that small effort felt like more than I could manage. Forget it. I let my face go blank and met Bennett's slightly panicked gaze head-on. We're already divorced. Why wouldn't I leave? Go be with Celeste. She waited for you all those years, now you're entirely hers. The two of you deserve to be happy. But Bennett went rigid, as though he hadn't heard a word about Celeste. His voice was thick with confusion. What divorce? When did we get divorced? I held out my copy of the divorce decree. Your copy is at the Edgewood estate. He took the document, shaking his head in wild disbelief. How can we be divorced? I never once said I wanted a divorce. A laugh escaped me before I could stop it. No forcing it, no effort required. Because the joke was simply too absurd. You didn't have to say it, your actions said it for you. A marriage like ours, what would be the point of dragging it out any longer? But Bennett just kept shaking his head. The all-powerful Mr. Crane had been reduced to a helpless infant who could do nothing but refuse. Without warning, he seized my shoulders. No. I never agreed to this. You had this fake document made to trick me, didn't you? It doesn't count. It can't count. We are not divorced. As his voice climbed higher and higher, it struck me that he looked like a man who had lost his mind. Bennett. I said his name. A flash of hope lit up his eyes. as though he expected the next words out of my mouth to grant him everything he wanted. Instead, I fixed him with a thin, mocking smile and asked, "Take a good look at yourself right now. Doesn't this look like the behavior of a lunatic?" The smile on Bennett's face turned to stone. Unlike before, now that I stood here alone, every word I spoke drove into him like a blade. "Tell me, between the way you look right now and the way I looked when I used to beg you to stay, who seems more unhinged?" Bennett opened his mouth but couldn't find an answer. "I'm sorry. It's my fault, Rosalind. I just. 3 times he stammered, groping for some excuse to explain why he had kept abandoning me. But the words wouldn't come. After repeating himself, he simply dropped his head into silence. He knew that no excuse would change anything. His neglect, his coldness, his carelessness, those were the root of everything that had brought us here. Forget it, Bennett. Looking at him now, I could see that he was exhausted too. The divorce is done. Let's release each other. Wouldn't that be better for us both? Nobody says you're only allowed to love one person in your lifetime. I just refuse to stay in a broken marriage. I gazed into Bennett's eyes and watched them glaze over with moisture, 1,000 unspoken pleas hovering on his lips. I had always thought his eyes were beautiful. They were so expressive, one earnest look was all it took to know exactly what he was thinking. Once upon a time, those eyes had me completely captivated. And it was those very same eyes that eventually told me he didn't love me. Let's end things here. I wish us both peace. Chapter 7. An hour later. I was back on a plane bound for Driftwood. This time Bennett didn't try to stop me, he arranged the flight himself. I already knew he had been the one pulling every string behind the scenes. The moment he gave the order to let me go, every obstacle vanished. He accompanied me all the way to the boarding gate. Standing in front of the security checkpoint, Bennett wavered, as though he wanted to say something but couldn't bring himself to. Then, just as I scanned my boarding pass and stepped through, his voice reached me from behind. "Rosalind. Is there really nothing left for us?" I kept walking and didn't look back. That silence was the clearest answer I could give him. The flight from Grey Hollow to Driftwood was a short one, barely 3 hours in the air. I had never set foot in Driftwood before. The cold surprised me, it was sharper than I'd expected. Still, it was August, and even this far north the warmth was enough to get by. I made my way to the guest house I had reserved ahead of time. Rather than booking some lavish hotel, I had chosen a place where I'd be surrounded by people. Driftwood lived up to its reputation for warmth, and the landlady greeted me with a kind smile. "You're quite a bit later than we agreed on. Did something happen along the way?" I shook my head. "It's all taken care of now." "Good to hear. A young woman traveling on her own, if there's anything you need, don't hesitate to ask." I thanked her for the welcome, grateful for how genuine her kindness felt. She wanted to know whether I had eaten yet and rattled off a few nearby restaurants, insisting every one of them was worth a visit. My original plan had been to dive straight into building my new life in Driftwood, but having only just arrived, I figured there was no harm in enjoying myself a little first. For 5 years I had lived on eggshells for Bennett's sake, never daring to cut loose, terrified that anything I did might tarnish his reputation. Now, at last, I was free. Chapter 8. Following the landlady's directions, I made my way to a lounge bar. Evenings were when the place was at its quietest. They also offered some simple bar snacks. I ordered some fried finger food and a low-alcohol drink. Settling onto a bar stool, I let the house singer's cover of "I Can't Make You Love Me" wash over me. The bartender wiped a glass, and just as he was handing me that drink, which had basically zero alcohol content, he pulled it back slightly. "It's not safe for a girl to be drinking alone." I smiled, looking at the drink that was weaker than ginger beer. "This doesn't even have 0.5% of alcohol." Just let me have it. The bartender raised an eyebrow but eventually handed the wine, or rather, the beverage, over to me. I took a sip. The first thing I tasted was a rich sweetness, with not even a trace of alcohol. Calling it liquor seemed absurd. But once that sweetness dissolved, a sharp sourness crept in, so sour it curdled into bitterness. I frowned and asked him what on earth he had served me. He tapped the tablet menu on the counter, scrolled all the way to the bottom, and said, "You asked for the drink with the lowest alcohol content. It's called Life. I shoved the glass away in disgust. With pretentious drinks like this, no wonder you don't have any customers. From our earlier chat, I knew he was both the bartender and the owner of this place. A sheepish grin crossed the bartender's face. That actually hurts a little. But the fried food turned out to be excellent, and the evening ended up being surprisingly enjoyable. Since the place was empty, the bartender and I just talked. I asked him if there were any places worth visiting or looking around. He mentioned that Driftwood has some lovely scenic spots, but getting around by car is far more practical since the shuttle buses there run on unpredictable schedules. That left me feeling frustrated. Finding a driver at this hour would be a challenge. On top of that, it was peak tourist season, so renting a car was nearly impossible. I was feeling a bit bummed out, but seeing my dilemma, the bartender sighed at me. "All right, I'll take you tomorrow." I looked up and asked, "You're not opening the shop? Didn't you say my shop has no customers and isn't worth keeping open? I need to make some extra cash somehow." With a shrug, the bartender retrieved the glass of life and replaced it with a glass of iced berry cordial. The singer had wrapped up "I Can't Make You Love Me" and transitioned into a Spanish song I'd never heard before. Her voice was gentle, and I sat there listening for a long time. I watched the singer, while the bartender, unbeknownst to me, silently watched me. Chapter 9. The next morning, the bartender showed up right on schedule outside my guest house. I asked him how he knew which guest house I was staying at. He said, "People who come here only stay at this one." The car was clearly his own, not a rental. I handed the bartender a generous tip for playing tour guide and told him to show me a good time. The bartender looked a bit hurt. "Can you stop calling me bartender? My name is Miles Crane." Sounds like a girl's name. The words tumbled out before I could stop them, and I instantly regretted how rude that sounded. Moreover, now that I mentioned it, he did have the delicate features of a pretty boy. Miles laughed. "You caught me. My family actually raised me as a girl when I was little. I wore dresses until I started elementary school." That piqued my interest. I waved my hand grandly. "If I pay extra, can I see the photos?" Miles raised an eyebrow. "Absolutely. You're my sugar mama, and I'm your toy boy." His teasing drew a genuine laugh out of me. I couldn't help but find him funny. Road trips are definitely fun, and Miles knew Driftwood like the back of his hand. He took me to try local delicacies, visit the tourist spots, and check out the county fair. Every time we sat down to eat, he made a point of telling the owner, "No green onions." We won the grand prize at the fair. It was exactly what I wanted. At the county fair, I offered up prayers for love and a life free of hardship. The first day was wonderful. The next day, we went to the Science and Technology Museum. My luck took a turn for the worse. We couldn't get VIP tickets. But Miles led me up to the second floor to listen in, apparently his usual trick. On the third day, we went hiking. My shoes fell apart halfway up the trail, but Miles produced a brand new pair as if he'd been expecting it. On the fourth day, we headed to the seaside for a performance. The fireworks were stunning, too. As Miles and I stood by the bridge, someone dressed in a rabbit mascot suit walked over and pressed a lisianthus flower into my hand. My favorite flower. I turned to Miles. "Did you arrange this, too?" Miles smiled, but shook his head. "No." I froze. He ducked his head again, looking slightly embarrassed as he continued. Actually, none of those things on the first day were my doing. He didn't know me well enough, of course he wouldn't know I don't eat green onions. The truth is, luck has never been on my side. I used to chalk it up to having spent every last drop of it just meeting Bennett. My love life hasn't been smooth sailing either. All at once, I recalled the nagging feeling I'd had throughout this trip, the sense that someone was following me. He was watching from the shadows, refusing to show himself. Miles gave a bitter smile. That's why, starting from the second day, I tried hard to do whatever I could. Actually, you did win those VIP tickets. I just threw them away. Because he gave them to you. The only reason I knew your shoe size was because I secretly got it from him, and then I went out and bought a pair myself. I didn't actually want to bring you here tonight. A friend told me some big shot was planning a fireworks show at this exact spot. My friend thought he was congratulating me on my lucky break, but I knew those fireworks were meant for you. I didn't want that. But then I figured, if he's going through all this trouble for you, it must be something you'd love. So I brought you anyway. Miles said a lot, all in one breath. I knew he did it for me. Perhaps it began with love at first sight, or perhaps that brief conversation one evening was all it took to draw him in. But seeing him so timid at the end, afraid to even look me in the eye, I felt there was nothing to blame him for. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just a little jealous. Miles wrestled with himself for a long time before finally lifting his gaze, his eyes brimming with tears. True to his gentle features, even his tears looked like a tender expression of love. That rabbit mascot just now was definitely him. If you go find him now, it's not too late. I stared at him until he started to tremble. He was putting on a noble act, urging me to leave. But every fiber of his being wanted me to stay. I had told him bits and pieces about Bennett and me. He knew I was a divorcee looking for freedom. But he was also terrified that I still harbored some lingering feeling for that past love. I took a step back. Miles looked like a wounded puppy, fighting every instinct to throw himself at me and beg. Then I lunged forward and buried myself in Miles's arms. I won't go look for him. Chapter 10. For the first time in his life, Bennett discovered that a person could feel scorching hot and freezing cold in the very same instant. It was late August, and the heavy rabbit mascot suit had left him drenched in sticky sweat. Yet watching me run toward Miles sent an icy wave through his entire body. He knew perfectly well that we were divorced. That sooner or later I would meet someone new and build a different life. But he still clung to a sliver of fantasy, imagining we could find our way back to each other. When Miles and I left the seaside, we spotted him standing alone at the end of the road. Not another soul in sight, just him in that rabbit costume, looking utterly desolate. Like a homeless little animal. But when I thought about what he had done to me, the image just seemed ridiculous. As I walked past him, those furry paws spread out to block my path. I told Miles to head back first. I'll talk to him. Worry flickered across Miles's face, but I shook my head to reassure him, just wait for me in the car over there. If anything happens to me, just drive over and run him down. That finally put him at ease. Don't worry, mission accepted. Once Miles had gone, Bennett at last removed that comical headpiece. His forehead glistened with sweat and his hair stuck out in every direction. Never before had I seen him look so wretched, much less on my account. I smiled at him. You've wasted so many days here. Isn't Celeste looking for you? Celeste was the type who demanded Bennett's undivided attention around the clock whenever she returned to the country. Not a single moment's delay would she tolerate. That was how she kept him on a leash, stringing him along for 5 years. And Bennett, of all people, fell for it every time. But now, Bennett actually paused, stunned, and then shook his head. I won't go looking for her anymore. I made it clear to her. The only reason I stayed by her side was guilt. I felt I had wronged her in the past, by not being there when she needed me most. But in trying to make things right for her, I ended up destroying someone else. I refused to keep perpetuating that cycle of pain. Then she went abroad. She said she's never coming back. Bennett spoke as though it were nothing, his tone deliberately light. But I knew Celeste's temper. There was no way she left without an explosive fight. Before leaving the country. And then he came back to find me. A soft chuckle escaped me. Bennett, you only came looking for me because she's never coming back, right? Bennett shook his head frantically. Of course not. It's because I like you. I said those things to her because I like you. I don't want to hurt you anymore. Rosalind. I like you. I love you. Sweet nothings always sound good. If this had been a short while ago, even the 99th time, I might have let it go. But now, with 100 forgivenesses stacked one on top of another, there were no chances left to give. Even if he's telling the truth, so what? I gave him 100 chances. But I don't need your love anymore, Bennett. Do you think just because you love me, I'm obligated to respond? Bennett's tears finally fell. Today I had witnessed so many of this man's firsts. The first time he looked pathetic, the first time he cried. Yet none of it stirred anything in me, just numbness. Rosalind, if you don't love me, why did you keep the things I gave you? I paused for a moment before realizing what he meant. The properties? You have the nerve to bring up the things you used to buy my forgiveness? A bitter laugh escaped me. It doesn't matter. Take them all back. I don't want them. Do you think I actually care about them? Things that serve as constant reminders of your betrayal, did you really think I cherished them? I left him with those final words and walked away in disgust. But Bennett refused to let go. He seized my arm and demanded in disbelief, you don't want me, and you don't want the money. Are you seriously going to throw your life away on that two-bit bar owner? What can he possibly give you? I wrenched free of Bennett's grip and told him coldly, I don't need him to give me anything. I just need him not to betray me. Without a backward glance, I walked away. Bennett tried to chase after me. But the giant rabbit costume tripped him up, blocking his path. All he could do was scream at my retreating figure. Who can guarantee he won't betray you? The man had truly lost his mind, I decided. Someone who had betrayed me wanting to measure his trustworthiness against someone who hadn't, what a joke. I shook my head and didn't answer. But Miles was standing by the car door. He glanced down, his expression gentle, and asked, do you not trust me? I can afford to run a bar, you know. I'm not actually that poor. I can certainly afford to take care of you. I couldn't help but laugh. Grabbing him by the collar, I warned him, if you dare betray me, I'll just find someone else. In the end, Bennett never took back those properties. I opened a separate bank account and funneled all the rental income into it. Not a single cent did I ever touch. Miles's bar was truly terrible, so we closed it down and converted it into a 24-hour diner. Our menu consisted entirely of comfort food and non-alcoholic drinks. Every item on it was my design. After all, Miles really didn't have the knack for it. Thanks to the guesthouse owner's relentless promotion, business was booming within a few months. The owner asked me when we were getting married. Before I could speak, Miles answered first, not just yet. At the very least, I need to earn enough for a property of my own so we're well matched in social status. The end. Book 2. Chapter 1. On the eve of our wedding, my boyfriend Elliot, the Godfather, told me he needed to do 100 things for his first love before coming back to marry me. But on the night of our 5th anniversary together, he proposed to his ex, Audrey, with 999 roses and a Tiffany ring I had dreamed of for years. Family members flooded Instagram with likes and comments, calling them a match made in heaven. I quietly left a comment under the viral video too, wishing you happiness. Elliot called almost immediately, irritation thick in his voice. Evelyn, stop making a scene. This is already the 99th thing. Once I finish the last one, I'll come back. The video of Elliot proposing to Audrey in the middle of a sea of flowers was filmed by countless passers-by and uploaded to TikTok and Instagram. It shot straight to the trending lists. The comment section was full of praise, how perfect they looked together, how true love finally won. I pressed a hand against my stomach, cramped with hunger, staring at the steak dinner that had long gone cold in front of me. My heart sank all the way to the bottom. Today was supposed to be Elliot and my 5th anniversary. Ever since Audrey reappeared, our relationship had been drifting further and further apart. I had planned to talk to him properly today, one last time. He had agreed. He said Audrey wouldn't be there. Just the two of us. That morning, he even bought my favorite Napa Valley Cabernet. But in the afternoon, he suddenly texted that something urgent had come up at work and that he'd be late, asking me to wait for him. So I sat at the dining table, from 6 in the evening until 1 in the morning. What I didn't expect to wait for was a live-streamed proposal to another woman. I chewed the cold, tough steak mechanically and opened Audrey's Instagram. In her latest story, Audrey was blushing, standing on tiptoe, leaning close to Elliot's ear and whispering softly. For the last thing, I want you to propose to me right now. And then kiss me. Elliot froze for a second, then, without hesitation, dropped to one knee and pulled out the ring box he had clearly prepared in advance. Audrey, will you marry me? I stared at the ring in his hand, completely stunned. Just a few days ago, when I found that small blue box in his coat pocket, I thought it was a surprise he had secretly prepared for our anniversary. After all, I was still wearing the simple silver ring he gave me back when I helped him build the family from nothing. I still remembered the first time he put that silver ring on my finger. His eyes were red as he held me tightly and said, Evelyn, I've wronged you. I swear, once I become godfather, I'll buy you a ring 10,000 times better than this. I laughed and told him I wanted Tiffany. I wanted him to belong to me, and only me, for the rest of his life. He promised without hesitation. And now, he had become the most notorious godfather in San Francisco's underground world. But that Tiffany ring was on Audrey's finger. No wonder that day, when I picked up the ring box and said I liked it, he panicked and snatched it away, lying that another capo had asked him to buy it and that he was just holding on to it temporarily. In the video, Audrey covered her mouth in disbelief, extended her delicate fingers, and nodded softly. Elliot, I do. The matching silver ring Elliot used to wear, the one that paired with mine, was gone. Only a faint mark remained on his ring finger. After he slipped the ring onto Audrey's hand, the two of them kissed passionately amid the cheers of other family members. I picked up my phone and dialed Elliot's number. Audrey answered. She barely managed a hello, before Elliot took the phone from her. She muttered unhappily, then I'll go take a shower first. So after the proposal and the kiss, they were heading straight to a hotel. Efficient. Terrifyingly so. Elliot's voice was cold as ever. What is it? I pressed my lips together. Apparently, he still didn't know he'd gone viral. Where are you? Family business. If you've got something to say it fast. He seemed to walk a few steps away, the sound of running water in the background grew quieter. My eyes stayed fixed on the image of them kissing. Elliot, I said softly. Let's break up. Book 2. Chapter 2. There was silence on the other end of the line for a few seconds. The sound of the shower felt painfully loud. He finally spoke. Evelyn, I'm really busy. I don't have time for these games. He paused, then added impatiently, almost like a warning. I'm serious. So am I. I hung up. I packed my things in under an hour, checked straight into a hotel, and slept until a little after 8 the next morning. When I turned my phone back on, Elliot's messages came flooding in. Didn't I tell you I'd be home late? Where the hell did you go? I've been exhausted all night, and you still have to pull this? Don't tell me this is about Audrey again. When I didn't reply for a long time, the tone of his later messages clearly lost whatever patience he had left. I didn't know if he was simply too busy to check his phone, or if he'd turned off all social media notifications. I didn't respond. I quietly added him to my blacklist. Honestly, I should have done it a long time ago. Ever since Audrey showed up with that notebook Elliot had written himself, listing 100 things he promised to do for her, he had been almost endlessly accommodating to her. I couldn't understand it at all. I cried. I fought. I broke down. But Elliot told me it was a promise he had made with his own hands, after Audrey once saved his life in the ocean. It had nothing to do with love. He just wanted to keep his word. Back then, I hadn't realized how serious things were. And I couldn't bear to let go of everything we'd built over the years. So I forced myself to accept it. I accepted things as small as Elliot going out to buy Audrey tampons. And things as big as him staying with her as she drank herself numb in bars late at night, or dropping everything to go on spontaneous road trips with her. And I swallowed all my hurt and heartbreak alone. Watching my boyfriend throw himself into danger for another woman. Worse still, the moment I questioned any of it, he would label me petty, immature, jealous, and mean. What's laughable is that I truly believed that once he finished paying off his so-called debt to Audrey, everything between us would go back to how it used to be. It wasn't until now that I finally saw it clearly. Just how disastrously wrong I had been. Book 2. Chapter 3. After I decided to give up on Elliot, my work efficiency improved noticeably. Back then, in the name of so-called fairness, Elliot had kicked me out of the family, the same woman who had built everything with him from nothing. So I had no choice but to find another job. Luckily, I genuinely liked this one. My manager asked whether I wanted to compete for the company's London training program. I was momentarily stunned. It wasn't until she forwarded the talent development plan to my email that I finally understood what she meant. That evening after work, the moment I stepped out of the office building, I saw Elliot's tall figure waiting downstairs. Quite a few colleagues glanced over. If this had been before, I would have run over proudly and hugged him, staking my claim. But now, I pretended not to see him and turned to leave. He caught up in a few long strides, calling my name as he chased me. I dodged his reaching hand and stopped, turning to face him. I had always loved hugging and kissing him, savoring those simple, tender moments of closeness. He clearly hadn't expected me to avoid him. His hand froze midair, and his expression cooled. I've been listening to you lately. I haven't been paying much attention to Audrey. So what are you upset about now? Nothing. It's crowded after work, I don't want to cause a scene. I looked at him calmly as I spoke. He paused. It seemed he'd remembered, those were the exact words he used to brush me off whenever I clung to him in public. He studied me for a moment. Probably convinced that I really wasn't throwing a tantrum, he slid his hands back into his pockets and smiled. Feeling shy? There was a trace of smugness in his eyes, and for once his tone softened. I was busy out of my mind yesterday and forgot our anniversary. Tonight I'll take you somewhere nice. I wanted to refuse, but more and more coworkers were watching. With the overseas placement coming up, I didn't want personal matters affecting my work. So I got into the car with him. When we reached the vehicle, he opened the passenger door for me. At a glance, I saw a Polaroid of Audrey stuck to the vanity mirror on the sun visor, written in marker, Audrey baby's exclusive seat. A strand of light brown curled hair was clipped to the photo. Elliot tore it off casually and pulled down the hair, tossing it aside. Audrey was just messing around. Don't take it to heart. It's fine. I quietly closed the passenger door and walked to the back seat instead. He stared at my back, visibly startled. Only after I reminded him did he snap out of it. Inside the car, a pair of black stockings was stuffed into one corner. The air carried Audrey's favorite rose perfume. I could pretend not to see the stockings. But I was allergic to rose pollen. I couldn't help sneezing twice. Elliot remembered and quickly rolled down the windows to air things out. Through the rearview mirror, I caught the unease in his eyes. He opened his mouth a few times, but didn't say anything. Since Audrey came back, this was the first time I'd calmly observed him. There was a pale pink hair tie around his wrist, Audrey's favorite. Faint lipstick marks dotted his shirt collar. On his cuff, a small letter S was embroidered in pink thread. His wallet lay carelessly on the passenger seat. If I wasn't mistaken, opening it would reveal a selfie of him and Audrey. Not to mention the lipstick, compact mirror, and cute little stickers he never allowed me to keep in his car, now scattered everywhere, placed freely by Audrey. Those 100 little promises had already seeped into every corner of our lives, weaving an invisible net that tightened around my chest. All this time, I'd been deliberately avoiding these details. But now, looking at Elliot soaked in Audrey's marks, I suddenly realized, the little things that once kept me awake at night, even if gathered into steel needles and driven into me now, could no longer make me feel pain. Fresh air poured into the car, and my nose finally felt better. I rubbed it, took the bottled water he handed me, and absent-mindedly squeezed the plastic. Seeing that I looked normal, he quietly let out a breath. As long as you understand. What I promised Audrey is already over. Be good, stop overthinking everything. Was it really over? Thinking of Audrey's Instagram, and the wall of blessings from family members, I felt bored to the core. I answered flatly. Neither of us spoke again. Just as I was starting to drift off, a harsh screech of brakes tore through the air. I jolted awake and looked at him blankly. He had just finished a call, his expression strained. Audrey says her stomach hurts badly. How about we take her to the ER first, then go eat? I looked at the fading sunset outside the window. The last trace of fantasy inside me collapsed completely. He and Audrey were never going to end. The one that truly needed to end was me and Elliot. I shook my head. No need. I'm pretty tired from work today. I just want to rest early. Don't overthink it. I'm just worried something might happen to her. I know. After this stretch of highway, just drop me at the intersection. I thought my words were perfectly reasonable. But he suddenly turned to me, agitated. She's in so much pain she's crying, and you still have to talk like this? Even if you're jealous, that's a human life. Do you seriously need her to die before you're satisfied? I looked at him indifferently. I didn't say anything. You want to go to her, I didn't stop you. Why does that turn into me wanting her dead? He choked on my question and seemed too tired to argue. Either come to the hospital with me, or get out of the car right now. What? I blurted out instinctively. This was a ring highway. If I got out here, it would take at least 2 hours to get an Uber. And I was wearing heels. We stared at each other in silence. Disappointment rose in my eyes, followed by ridicule, and finally settled into calm. As expected, he was going to make me get out. Sure enough, he lost patience completely, slammed the door shut, and yanked me out of the back seat. Think about what you've done. He sped off, kicking up dust as he passed. I stood there on the roadside, dazed, my eyes reddening despite myself. By the time I got back to the hotel, the skin on my heels was torn open, and 2 blisters had formed on the soles of my feet. I pierced them with a needle, the pain making my nose sting. After tending to the wounds, I ate the burrito I'd grabbed from Chipotle on the way. Mom called, asking how things were going with Elliot lately. Holding the phone, my fingers unconsciously picked at the takeout box. Tears slipped into my food as I forced out, "Pretty good." "That's good, that's good. Do you have enough money? Elliot treats you well, right?" "It's enough. He's good to me." My throat felt stuffed with wet cotton. I made up an excuse and ended the call. Not long after, Mom transferred me $2,000. "Evelyn, take this. Your dad and I don't need that much at home." The last bit of strength inside me crumbled. I bit my lip and sobbed quietly. Through blurred vision, I sent the money back. "It's okay, Mom. Don't you remember? Elliot is a godfather now. He treats me well and doesn't hesitate to spend money on me." In truth, my job in San Francisco wasn't far from my parents' home in Oakland. But for Elliot, I hadn't gone back to spend time with them in a long while. I made a silent decision. Once the training program was settled, I'd go home and stay with them properly. Lost in thought, I received a call from Elliot, from another number. "Is your foot okay? You really should learn from Audrey. Stop being so jealous all the time." Straight out of his usual playbook, slap first, then offer candy. This had always been his way of controlling me. After every punishment, he'd throw in a few perfunctory words of concern. And I'd end up thinking I was the unreasonable one, begging for forgiveness, thanking him for his tolerance. When he didn't hear me apologizing, he sounded surprised and called my name. I answered with a soft mm. Only then did he continue. "Audrey's stomach hurts badly." Sensing something off in my reaction, he actually explained. "The doctor says it's a stomach ulcer. She needs an 4. Should I order you some food?" I swallowed the burrito in my mouth. "No need. I already ate." Elliot fell silent, probably at a loss for what to say. On his end, Audrey whimpered softly. He said, "Let's leave it at that," and hung up. After the call ended, I opened Audrey's Instagram. Her latest story had been posted 3 minutes ago. In the video, Elliot held her gently, massaging her stomach. And the background was Audrey's apartment living room. I took another bite of food and quietly added this number to my blacklist too. Book 2. Chapter 4. Elliot stopped bothering me after that. Instead, Audrey started sending me videos of Elliot taking care of her. I gave her the same treatment I'd given Elliot, blocked. Then I threw myself into studying English and brushing up on my professional skills every single day. My manager told me that although the final list hadn't been announced yet, based on my past performance, the London placement was basically mine. I was genuinely happy. For the first time in a long while, I felt joy and a sense of achievement. Little by little, I pushed both Elliot and Audrey out of my mind. Until Elliot called me from a family member's number. Only then did I remember, today was his birthday. On the phone, he said Audrey wanted to eat my chocolate chip cookies and asked me to make some and bring them over. I figured it was time to clear things up face to face. So I agreed half-heartedly and asked him to send me the party address. As soon as I found the private room, Audrey's sugary laughter drifted out from inside. "I already did exactly what you guys told me to do. So tell me, when is Evelyn finally going to get the hint and leave on her own?" "Probably soon." She even blocked Elliot's number. He had to borrow Mike's phone just now to reach her. Audrey stopped laughing. Her voice dropped, sounding uncertain. "But, what if Elliot actually likes Evelyn now? How's that possible? We all see it. Sure, Evelyn was there with the godfather from the very beginning, but his eyes tell the real story. If you hadn't gone abroad to study back then, you and Elliot would already have kids playing baseball by now. Honestly, Evelyn is shameless. You and Elliot are being this obvious, and she still refuses to let go. If that doesn't work, next time just send her some bed photos or videos. I don't believe she's really that good at enduring. Elliot and Audrey being childhood sweethearts was one thing. But these family members, every single one of them had benefited from my help in one way or another. I didn't understand why they held so much malice toward me. Was it Elliot's silent approval? Did they simply dislike me? Or was it something else? I didn't know. The conversation inside grew uglier by the second. I pushed the door open. The voices stopped abruptly. Audrey and the others all stared at me awkwardly. I met their gazes calmly. Then Elliot's voice sounded behind me. Evelyn, why aren't you going in? I turned around and saw Elliot in a black coat, holding a bottle of my favorite Napa Valley Red. Didn't get to drink with you last time. I brought this from home specially. Then he glanced at my empty hands. You didn't make the cookies? I nodded with a faint, unreadable smile. It's fine. You can make them tomorrow. He seemed in a good mood, talking to himself as he pulled me into the room. The moment Audrey saw Elliot, her eyes lit up. She naturally looped her arm through his and shot me a provocative look, as if to say, so what if you heard everything? In a syrupy voice, she said, Elliot, come sit with me. We grew up together, let's catch up. Evelyn won't mind, right? Elliot was dragged along by her, glancing at me awkwardly. Go ahead. I'll sit here. Only after I sat down did he let Audrey pull him to the seat across from me. Once everyone was more or less present, I took the seat closest to the door and said coolly, why'd you stop talking? Everyone looked at each other, no one saying a word. Audrey, meanwhile, kept serving Elliot food. Elliot peeled shrimp for me while chatting and laughing with Audrey. When he noticed I hadn't touched my food, he frowned. Evelyn, why aren't you eating? My stomach's uncomfortable. I feel nauseous. He froze. Then he picked up a rib and put it on my plate. Did your gastritis flare up again? Eat this. When we're done, I'll take you to CVS for medicine. No need. The smile on Elliot's face faltered. Audrey snapped angrily, are you doing this on purpose? Are you here just to stir things up? Audrey, don't talk nonsense. Elliot's tone turned cold. Audrey's eyes instantly reddened. She bit her lip and shot me a vicious look, but said nothing more. I looked at them in surprise. This was the first time he'd ever chosen to defend me over Audrey. That was my fault just now. I should have sat with you and taken care of you. Let me pour you some wine, your favorite. And I'll pick out some crab meat for you. Elliot switched seats with Mike and sat beside me, his voice soft with a mix of indulgence and helplessness. Clearly, he thought I was jealous again. Judging by his expression, he probably even expected me to thank him for giving me face in front of everyone. He reached for the wine bottle. I pushed the glass away. Red wine splashed across the table. No need. The one who likes crab is Audrey. Peel it for her. Audrey looked like she was about to cry. Evelyn, what are you talking about? Are you misunderstanding Elliot and me again? Her tears hovered in her eyes, effortlessly triggering every man's protective instinct. Yeah, Evelyn, what's your problem? You came in with a sour face like we all owe you money. If you didn't want to come, just say so, why act all high and mighty? Honestly, before was one thing, but now you're not even the godmother yet. What right do you have to throw tantrums at us? As they ganged up on me, Audrey looked at me smugly, her fingers lightly brushing the diamond ring on her ring finger. The tense atmosphere darkened Elliot's expression. Yet for once, he actually snapped at them, then turned and grabbed my hand. Evelyn, stop it. If there's something wrong, we'll talk about it at home. I shook him off. Then I looked at them with a cold laugh. What are you people, exactly? A bunch who gossip behind others' backs? Or ones who teach Audrey how to seduce someone else's boyfriend? Elliot finally lost it and hissed at me under his breath, Evelyn, you've gone too far. How many times do I have to tell you, Audrey and I really have nothing going on? Saying things like this, how is Audrey supposed to face people afterward? I turned my gaze to him. Elliot, do you take me for an idiot? Nothing going on, yet you proposed to her? With the ring I'd dreamed of for years? Nothing going on, yet you kissed her? Slept with her? And on our 5th anniversary, no less. My words came faster and faster. Across from me, Elliot's face drained of color. How did you know? Realizing too late, he grabbed my arm urgently. Listen to me, things aren't what you think. I shook him off again. Explain what? That damn childhood promise again? As for how I found out, ask your Audrey. Audrey's fragile expression stiffened, guilt flashing across her eyes. I smiled and swept my gaze around the room. Just before I walked in, weren't you all discussing when I'd finally leave on my own, so those two could be happily ever after? No need to guess. It's now. I took off the silver ring Elliot had once given me and tossed it onto the table. This ring, let's be honest, it's worth maybe $10. I wore it for 7 years. Not because I couldn't have something better, but because I treasured those 7 years we shared. Since you don't treasure them anymore, I'm done playing along. From now on, whether you do 100 things for Audrey, 1,000, or 10,000, it has nothing to do with me. For Elliot's sake, I'd always been extremely patient in front of him. They clearly hadn't expected me to explode like this. Everyone fell silent. Book 2. Chapter 5. The moment I got into the Uber, Elliot's shout rang out from behind me. Evelyn! Get back here. Everything had already been said clearly. If I turned around now, I really would be exactly what his men called me, pathetic. So I threw myself even harder into my work. Even my manager asked whether something difficult had happened in my personal life, since I'd been pushing myself so relentlessly. I shook my head and told him I just wanted to fight for my own future. He looked pleased and told me the final list for the London training program was out. When I saw my name, I couldn't stop the tears from falling again. But this time, they were tears of excitement and happiness. My manager had helped me a lot during this period. After some thought, I decided to treat him to dinner. Based on my finances, I grit my teeth and chose a seafood restaurant at Fisherman's Wharf, about $200 per person. My manager, Kyle, looked a little strange. I popped a piece of lobster into my mouth and watched him stand politely in line for 20 minutes, only to fail to get a single king crab leg. I fell silent. There had always been rumors around the office that this manager, who'd been parachuted in 6 months ago, was the CEO's son. Could it actually be true? In the end, I went over and helped him out. When he saw me come back with a tray piled high with king crab legs and oysters, his face was pure disbelief. The meal itself was pretty pleasant. He walked me back to my apartment building afterward. I thanked him. He asked whether I needed to discuss the London move with my boyfriend. I shook my head. No need. We already broke up. He didn't say anything else. I waved goodbye and turned to leave. After just a few steps, I saw Elliot standing not far away, watching me with a cold expression. Who is he? I ignored him and kept walking toward my building. He lost patience and grabbed my wrist. So all that talk about letting me be with Audrey, in the end, you just wanted to break up with me for him, right? He took a deep breath, clearly suppressing his emotions. And you've always been sensible. Why did you suddenly blow up like that at the restaurant? Find some time in the next couple of days and come apologize to Mike and the others. His grip on my wrist hurt. What he said made my anger flare. Elliot, you know better than anyone why we broke up. As for everything else, don't forget, we're not a couple anymore. I don't owe you updates about my life. And you still expect me to apologize to your bunch of idiots? Dream on. Book 2. Chapter 6. He froze for a moment. Panic flashed through his eyes, then his grip tightened, his face darkening. Evelyn. This is the third time you've said break up. I told you, those words aren't something you throw around. Even if what I said just now was wrong, that was because you were jealous? I cut him off. But Elliot, you don't have that right anymore. He looked like he wanted to say more, but his phone rang in his pocket, Audrey's special ringtone. He hung up. The moment he opened his mouth, it rang again. Irritated, he answered. Audrey's crying voice came through the speaker. Elliot, I got my period, my stomach hurts so bad. Could you? Audrey. I've already done everything I promised you. If your stomach hurts, go see a doctor. If you need pads, order Instacart. Don't call me again. He ended the call and, right in front of me, added her number to his blacklist. Then he looked at me like he was expecting praise. Evelyn, see? I blocked her. It has nothing to do with me. I shook his hand off hard and walked straight into my building. He kept calling after that, saying he wanted to talk things through properly. I was busy. I didn't have the energy. I told him that if he kept bothering me, I'd quit my job on the spot and disappear so he'd never find me again. He didn't dare disturb me after that. But every day, flowers were delivered to the company's front desk for me. He even took back the Tiffany ring from Audrey and mailed it to me. He said he knew I'd always liked it, that I was the one who should be wearing it. He said he knew he'd been wrong, that he hadn't considered my feelings before and had made me suffer. So he knew I liked it. He also knew what he did was wrong, that it hurt me. I didn't accept the ring. I had the courier send it straight back. Then he said that from now on, he'd do 100 things for me too. 1,000 little things. I found it ridiculous. So now that he'd lost me, he suddenly knew regret. Was this his idea of chasing me back, some dramatic redemption arc? Too bad. I'd waited long enough. I'd given him more than enough chances. I wasn't turning back. I told the front desk to refuse anything he sent from then on. Then I took half a month off and went back home to spend time with my parents. Book 2. Chapter 7. Mom and Dad were overjoyed. They cooked a huge table of food, everything I loved. I told them about my breakup with Elliot. Dad fell silent. Mom gently pulled me into her arms. Back then, my parents had already said Elliot was an ambitious man, and that our personalities didn't truly match. But I had been deeply in love with him at the time. I hadn't listened to a word. And just like that, 7 years slipped away. Evelyn, honestly, when you called last time, Mom already felt something was off. If you've thought it through, Mom supports you. My eyes reddened again. As for London, once I went, it would be a full year. After staying home for a few days, I started to hesitate. But Dad told me that he and Mom would always be my backbone, they just didn't want to become obstacles on my path forward. Only then did the weight in my heart finally lift. I stayed home, soaking in my parents' careful, unconditional love. Until a week later. Elliot showed up. In the past, I'd begged him countless times to come home with me to visit my parents. He always said he was too busy with work, that he couldn't spare the time. And now, he came uninvited. I didn't want to let him inside. But Dad said, guests are still guests. Some things need to be said clearly, otherwise, the one who gets dragged down in the end is yourself. Book 2. Chapter 8. Mom and Dad went to Safeway to buy groceries. That left just Elliot and me in the house. He looked much thinner. For someone who always cared about his appearance, he now had stubble on his chin and dark circles under his eyes. After Dad closed the door, Elliot took 2 steps toward me, trying to pull me into his arms. I stopped him with a look of pure disgust. He froze, withdrew his hand awkwardly, and let out a bitter laugh. "Evelyn, you came home, and you didn't even tell me. Why didn't you let me come with you?" I looked at him coldly. "Did you forget? We already broke up." His eyelashes trembled. His voice turned urgent. "Why did you break up with me? I really didn't touch her." I admit it, after Audrey came back, that notebook she brought did stir up a lot of memories from when we were young. But even if I lost focus in our relationship at first because of her, later I truly was just trying to fulfill my promise. I already found out, she deliberately set her Instagram so only you could see it, and she was the one sending you those videos. But believe me, the proposal was the very last thing she asked for. The kiss happened because there were too many people there. I couldn't embarrass her in front of everyone. And that night at the hotel, I really didn't touch her. She took a shower, but when I looked at her, all I could think about was you. I love you, Evelyn. I was scared. I was terrified that if I touched her even once, there would be no turning back for us. As for what happened at the restaurant, I checked the security footage. Mike and the others were in the wrong. I had no idea they were saying things like that behind your back. I promise you, from now on, I won't associate with them anymore. I'll just stay with you. Come home with me, okay? Didn't we agree? Once I finished keeping my promise, I'd come back to you. How could you stop waiting for me? As he spoke, his eyes reddened. I looked at him calmly. So what if you didn't sleep with her? In my heart, you're already dirty. From the moment you brought Audrey into the apartment we lived in together, that place stopped being my home. And as for Audrey, if you think you're obligated to fulfill your promise to her, then I'm equally entitled to turn around and walk away. I didn't hold back. His eyelashes trembled even harder. Book 2. Chapter 9. I knew how cold my eyes looked. And I finally understood why he could be so gentle with Audrey, yet so indifferent to me. It was simply because he didn't love me enough. If regret only comes after losing something, then for me, everything was already too late. He stared at me in disbelief. He probably never imagined that Evelyn, the one who always followed behind him, who smiled the moment he turned around, who softly called his name Elliot, would one day say something so cruel. "You're not thinking clearly right now. Let's talk when you calm down. I'll make you forgive me." "I will." Then he fled. When Mom and Dad came back and saw the wine and gift boxes on the floor, they didn't say a word. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Reluctant as I was, I hugged my parents goodbye and went back to the company to handle the London training paperwork. During those 2 weeks, Elliot became just like the old me. Every morning, afternoon, and night, he sent "Good morning. Good afternoon. Good night." He shared every tiny detail of his day with me. And I cooperated perfectly, replying the way he once did to me, busy. Back at the office, when I saw the full training list, I realized that Manager Kyle was on it too. I threw myself into handing over my work. Elliot stubbornly prepared 3 meals a day for me with his own hands. Those long, elegant fingers became covered in cuts and burns. Every time he brought food, I shared it with my coworkers. He started keeping our photos in his wallet. Ironically, Audrey had already cut our original couple photos apart. The photo in his wallet now was something he'd photoshopped together from 2 separate solo pictures. He wore the purple hair tie I liked on his wrist. He even switched the car diffuser to jasmine, my favorite scent. I couldn't understand his thinking at all. I didn't know what he hoped to achieve by doing all this now. But I couldn't stop him, so I let him be. After all, I was leaving the country the day after tomorrow. He didn't bring lunch that day. Instead, Mike, a family member, called me. He said Elliot had drunk alone at home the night before until he started vomiting blood. He was in the hospital now, refusing treatment, and begged me to go see him. Mike's voice was frantic on the phone. "Evelyn, whatever we did wrong, it's on us. Please go see Elliot. I'm begging you. If this keeps up, he's going to ruin himself." I frowned, thought for a moment, and still refused. Once I'd made up my mind to be ruthless, I couldn't afford to stay entangled. The day I left the country, manager Kyle boarded with me. We sat in the waiting lounge. He looked at me with an unreadable expression. "You've really thought it through? The guy who's been bringing you food every day, that's your boyfriend, right?" I shook my head and corrected him precisely. "Ex-boyfriend." He looked thoughtful. I glanced at him and asked curiously. "Then let me ask you something too, are you really the CEO's son?" Kyle froze. "Is it that obvious?" I nodded. Just as I was about to speak, a sudden commotion broke out in the terminal. I looked toward the crowd. Several trucks had pulled up outside the waiting hall. Truck after truck of white lilies was unloaded and carried inside. Elliot appeared, pale as paper, for a needle mark still visible on the back of his hand. He clutched his stomach, his steps unsteady, and walked toward me, his eyes filled with desperate pleading. "Why didn't you tell me you were leaving the country? Evelyn, you can't do this to me." I frowned at his bloodless face. There wasn't a trace of pity in my heart. Behind him was a sea of white flowers. From the pocket of his hospital gown, he pulled out another Tiffany diamond ring. Elliot staggered and dropped to his knees in front of me. "Evelyn, I really know I was wrong. That ring. I actually knew what you meant when you showed it to me. I never forgot my promise to you. But there was only one ring. Back then, I had already promised Audrey, I had no choice. I know you wouldn't wear something another woman already wore. This one is brand new. It cost several times more than hers. I'm begging you. Don't go. Please." I looked coldly at Elliot kneeling before me, emotions tangled inside. "No. Elliot, we're over. Stop doing these pointless things." "No, Evelyn, I don't believe it. You loved me so much, you wouldn't abandon me. How could this be pointless? I know, you're jealous. I can do all those things for you too. I'll do even better than I ever did for her." The way he shook his head desperately, trying to keep me, was exactly how I must have looked back when Audrey first returned, begging him not to leave me. The boarding announcement echoed through the terminal. Book 2. Chapter 10. I tried to break free, but his handsome face was twisted with misery. Silent tears slid down his cheeks, his eyes full of desperate pleading, and for a moment, I couldn't shake him off. Then his phone rang. "Audrey." He held my arm with one hand and was about to hang up when her message came through. She wrote, "The seawater is so cold. Just like the night I saved you." The strength in his grip slowly drained away. I let out a cold laugh and easily pulled free. Then I turned and walked toward the boarding gate with Kyle. As for Elliot, from this moment on, he would run toward his Audrey, and I would run toward a new future without him. The moment I landed, I received a message from Elliot. Just 3 words, "I'm sorry." He said Audrey had saved his life, and he couldn't stand by and watch her die. He said he was sorry to me, and that he knew I would never forgive him. He said that without me all these years, he never would have made it this far. Then he transferred me $500,000. I thought that money was far more useful than his love. Mike called me several more times afterward. He said Audrey had gone abroad again. Elliot personally saw her off and forbade her from coming back. They asked whether I could return and rekindle things with Elliot. Elliot stubbornly continued doing those 100 little things. He said that once he made a promise, he would keep it. I had never asked him to do any of that, and I couldn't stop him from spiraling. So I simply ignored him. Once he exhausted himself, he'd probably stop. Seeing me grin stupidly at my banking app balance, Kyle tapped the table. "You're not thinking about going back to him just because of that 500 grand, are you?" I shook my head. "Don't be ridiculous." Kyle looked at me, waiting for more. I didn't understand why he cared so much about my situation, but I continued anyway. "I still have plenty of work to do for the company. Who has time to eat their leftovers?" Kyle pressed his lips together, clearly dissatisfied with my answer. I, however, smiled in relief. Because I truly liked my life right now. A life without Elliot. It wasn't nearly as terrifying as I'd imagined. If anything, it was full of hope. And this was my brand new future. The end. Book 3. Chapter 1. For 7 years of marriage, my husband canceled our honeymoon for the 100th time. The first time, I'd planned the trip 6 months in advance. I waited at the airport until the flight was officially canceled, only to scroll through my phone and see him riding a carousel at an amusement park with his first love, who'd just gone through a breakup. The second time, 1 second before boarding, that same woman called him in tears, saying she'd cut her finger while chopping vegetables. He turned around on the spot and went to take care of her. After that, no matter the date or occasion, his precious first love always happened to be in trouble, always needing him. When he canceled yet again, this time with the excuse, "She's all alone, it'd be cruel to leave her," I finally lost hope. That same day, I packed my bags and placed the divorce papers right in front of him. This was the 100th time Lucas Harlan had canceled our honeymoon. And then, he vanished for an entire month. Until Lila Voss sent me a friend request. For the past 30 days, they'd been traveling together, using the honeymoon itinerary I'd spent countless sleepless nights meticulously crafting. My hands trembled as I clicked open their latest Instagram post. In the photo, Lila leaned against Lucas's shoulder, her head tilted, eyes crinkled with laughter. Lucas looked down at her, his expression soft, tender, utterly devoted. Then she messaged me, multiple private photos. "Thanks so much. We've been trying out all sorts of new positions in every hotel you picked out for us." I sank to the floor, ice flooding my veins. My phone slipped from my fingers and hit the hardwood with a sharp crack. I don't know how long I sat there before the front door clicked open. A month of travel had darkened Lucas's skin. He walked in with the easy, satisfied air of someone who'd just returned from a perfect vacation. He froze when he saw me on the floor, then frowned. "What are you doing sitting on the ground in the middle of the night?" His tone made it sound like I was the one who'd done something wrong. I stared at him, mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. For an entire month, I'd searched for him like a madwoman, terrified he'd been hurt, barely sleeping, barely eating, while he'd been off playing tourist with her. When I stayed silent, he stepped past me and poured himself a glass of water. After a sip, he added casually, as if remembering, "Had to check on a last-minute company project. Signal was terrible the whole time." "Is that so?" My voice came out hoarse. I gripped the arm of the sofa and slowly pulled myself upright. "So, a business trip to Paris?" Lucas froze mid-sip. He set the glass down and turned to face me. "I don't know what you're talking about." I let out a bitter laugh, picked up my shattered phone from the floor, and pulled up Lila's post. I held the screen out to him. "Lucas." I locked eyes with him, each word sharp and deliberate. "Is this your urgent project?" Taking your precious first love on the exact honeymoon I planned, staying in the hotels I booked, fucking in the beds I reserved for us? He sighed heavily, set the glass down, and gave me that tired, indulgent look, the one reserved for unreasonable children. It's not what you think. The condescension in his voice made my chest heave. I sucked in a shaky breath, tears blurring my vision. Not what I think. She told me everything. A month ago, she faked being unwell to drag you away. The second my flight got cancelled, you two were already on a plane overseas. What's left to explain? His eyes flickered, but not with guilt. With impatience. Lila has depression. We've known each other since we were kids. I couldn't just abandon her. And the photos? I choked out. You expect me to believe you didn't sleep together? You were naked in half of them. All those places were just coincidences. Coincidences? Every single location matched my itinerary exactly, and he called it coincidence. I almost laughed. Instead, a hollow ache spread through my chest, slow and brutal, like a dull blade sawing through my ribs. I looked at him, the man I'd loved for 7 years, and felt something inside me snap. I accept your explanation. 7 years of marriage. 100 cancelled honeymoons. Maybe he never wanted one with me at all. Lucas's shoulders relaxed. Relief washed over his face. Without another word, I placed the divorce papers I'd prepared weeks ago on the coffee table between us. Because I finally accepted the truth, Lucas Harlan never loved me. Let's get divorced. Book 3. Chapter 2. The living room fell so silent you could hear a pin drop. Lucas's expression darkened instantly, then smoothed over just as quickly. We've been married for 7 years, he said, voice low. Are you really going to divorce me over something this small? Emma, you're almost 30, he added, sharper now. Don't be childish. He leaned forward slightly, his tone shifting to negotiation. Just tell me what you want. A luxury car? A bigger house? A promotion at the network? As long as we don't divorce, I'll give you anything. I spoke softly. I don't need anything. I'll leave with nothing. After all, I didn't care about Lucas Harlan's money. My family's wealth dwarfed his entire portfolio. Right then, Lucas's phone buzzed. A voice message from Lila Voss. She was sobbing. Lucas, what do I do? My mom's gone crazy again, she's screaming that I have to get married right now. Where am I supposed to find someone to marry on the spot? I'm so scared. Can you please come over right away? Mom, stop hitting me. Lucas's face tightened with urgency. Without hesitation, he grabbed his keys. Don't be afraid. I'm coming. I held out the divorce papers. Sign them, I said calmly. That way, your Lila won't get beaten for not being married. His jaw clenched, his eyes stormy, but he snatched the pen and signed without another word. Maybe guilt flickered in him, because after signing, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a delicate necklace, and fastened it around my neck himself. Be good, he murmured. This is just temporary. I really am sorry about the honeymoon. Next time, I'll plan it myself. Just, behave at home, okay? I nodded numbly. Within the hour, I packed every last belonging. By midnight, the apartment was empty, except for the echo of 7 wasted years. The next morning, both divorce and marriage paperwork moved with unnatural speed through the Boulder County Courthouse. After collecting my final documents, I headed straight to the Rocky Mountain News Network to submit my resignation. Brant Zimmerman, my boss, frowned as he read my letter. Emma, you're at the peak of your career. Quitting now isn't rational. Before I could respond, a chorus of cheerful voices spilled into the hallway. The door swung open without a knock. Lila stood there, radiant in a cream-colored coat, holding a basket of caramel apples wrapped in gold foil, Colorado-style wedding favors. "Oh, Mr. Zimmerman. Good morning. Lucas and I just got married." She beamed, placing the treats on his desk. "Here, have some joy." I stiffened. Why was she here, on my last day, in my workplace? Her eyes locked onto mine, gleaming with mockery. "Oops, sorry, Emma, looks like I ran out of favors just for you." Then, with deliberate sweetness, "Oh, and heads up, I'll be taking over your segment. We'll be colleagues now. Do take care of me." Her gaze held a challenge. She wanted my husband, my job, my dignity. "Fine." I smiled, but didn't offer my hand. "You won't be my colleague. Because as of today, I'm no longer employed here." "Why didn't you tell me you were resigning?" Lucas's voice cut through the room. He strode in, scowling, Lila's designer coat draped over his arm like a trophy. I stared. He'd actually escorted her here, to hand out wedding candy, to announce their union so brazenly. We'd never gone public with our marriage. For 7 years, only a handful knew I was Mrs. Harlan. Now, he paraded his new wife through my workplace like a victory lap. I arched a brow. "Why would I need to tell you? We're divorced." Book 3. Chapter 3. As an investor in your program, I don't approve. "I thought I'd made myself perfectly clear," he said, voice tight. "This divorce is temporary. All I ask is that you be reasonable." "Why can't you get that right?" "It's just a piece of paper," he added, almost dismissively. "Does it really matter that much?" I spoke calmly. "I never cared much about the certificate either. I'm resigning because I need a break, that's all." Lucas frowned deeper, his jaw set. "Couldn't you pick another time? Did it have to be the exact day Lila starts and hands out wedding candies? Do you have any idea how much gossip she'll face at the station because of this?" His eyes narrowed. "Are you doing this on purpose to humiliate her?" Lila Voss sniffled beside him, eyes glistening with carefully staged tears. "Don't say that. If Emma doesn't want me here, I'll just leave. I don't want to cause trouble." "No," I cut in before she could finish. I reached out and gently wiped away the tears she'd barely managed to squeeze out. My voice was soft, but edged with steel. "I'm the one who's been unreasonable. I should have cleared out the moment I heard you were coming, packed up and gotten out of your way. This place is yours now." Lila froze, her performance faltering. I didn't wait for a response. Turning away from both of them, I motioned to Victor Lang, the station head. "Could you please sign this now?" He did so without a word. I took the signed resignation letter, turned on my heel, and walked out, fast, firm, and final. Behind me, Lucas watched me go, irritation flickering across his face. It wasn't anger, it was the frustration of someone who'd just realized he'd lost control. Lila tugged gently at his sleeve. "Lucas, maybe Emma's just upset. She'll calm down soon. Please don't let this come between you because of me." He rubbed his temples, already dismissing the whole thing. "Let her throw her tantrum. In a few days, when her bank account runs dry, she'll come crawling back." Back at my desk, I ignored the stares, curious, confused, even pitying, and began packing. Hannah Ellis, my assistant, approached with red-rimmed eyes. "Emma, you're really leaving?" I nodded. "You should have heard that girl," she whispered fiercely. She was bragging to everyone that she'd finally won Lucas back after years of waiting, like you were the villain who ruined their love story. When she's the one who... I covered her mouth gently and shook my head. "Don't say it. Not here. Not ever again. It'll only hurt you." I handed her a stack of files. "For now, these are yours. Then I lifted the cardboard box filled with 7 years of memories, photos, notebooks, a chipped coffee mug, and said quietly, "Goodbye." Outside the Rocky Mountain News Network building, I hailed a cab to the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. At the front desk, I handed over the black American Express card my father had given me years ago, the one I'd never used, not once, in all my marriage to Lucas. I'd hidden my family's wealth to spare his fragile ego. But that chapter was over. The moment the card was swiped, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. "Sweetheart," my mother, Maggie Rivers, said, her voice warm with relief, "when you're ready, come home. The ranch is waiting for you. Your father pretends he doesn't care, but he's been upgrading the offices, fixing the workshop, he wants everything perfect for when you take over." I glanced at the flight confirmation on my screen, Denver to Colorado Springs, tomorrow night. "I know, Mom," I said, smiling for the first time in weeks. "I've got the divorce decree. I'm coming home. See you the day after tomorrow." After we hung up, I sank into the hotel bed, exhaustion finally catching up. Tomorrow, I'd go home. Book 3. Chapter 4. The next morning, as I packed my things, I realized my late grandmother's sketchbook was still at Lucas Harlan's house. It was the leather-bound album she'd filled throughout my life, delicate pencil drawings capturing every joyful moment she'd witnessed, my first day of school, summer afternoons in the garden, quiet evenings reading by lamplight. It was her final gift, the only tangible proof that someone had truly seen me. I hurried back to the Boulder estate, fumbling with the spare key Lucas had never bothered to change. The moment I turned the knob, a burst of metallic confetti exploded in my face. "Happy birthday, Lila." "Wait, who's at the door?" One of Lila's friends stepped forward, long acrylic nails scraping the glittering streamers off my cheek. I flinched too late. A thin red line appeared on my skin, drawing blood. Silence crashed over the room like a wave. Lila froze in Lucas's arms. He frowned, his voice sharp with irritation. "You finally decided to show up?" "It's too late," he added coldly. "Lila's moved in. You don't have a place here anymore." I took a slow breath, forcing my voice steady. "I'm only here for my grandmother's sketchbook." I turned toward the storage closet down the hall. "Wait." Lila's voice rang out, sweet as poisoned honey. She looped her arm through Lucas's, pouting up at him. "Lucas, it's my birthday. Does she have to ruin it by barging in like this?" Lucas's expression darkened. "Emma, do you really have to cause trouble today?" As if I'd known they were throwing a party. As if I'd chosen this moment on purpose. My fists clenched at my sides. "I just want what's mine." "Oh, in such a hurry?" A redhead in a sequin top smirked from the sofa. "Planning to crash the party on purpose?" Every eye in the room pinned me like a specimen under glass. "I'll be gone the second I have the sketchbook," I said, keeping my tone flat. Lila's eyes lit up with cruel delight. "Tell you what, sis, since you're here, why not help celebrate? Slice some fruit, arrange the platter, and I'll let you go upstairs to look." My head snapped up. The others chimed in eagerly. "Yeah, hurry up. Grab extra wine while you're at it, I'm parched." Lucas gave a curt nod. "Emma, as the former lady of the house, don't be petty." I stared at the man I'd loved for 7 years. No remorse. No flicker of shame. Just annoyance that I wouldn't play along. He let them treat me like staff. "Fine," I heard myself say. In the kitchen, my hands trembled over the marble counter. Plump strawberries, glistening grapes, and a towering vanilla cake sat waiting. Lila's friends drifted in and out, voices dripping with condescension. "So that's Lucas's ex? She looks ordinary. Heard she chased him for years. 7 years married and never got a honeymoon. Lila and Lucas are soulmates. She was just a placeholder." I kept cutting. Slice after slice. Mechanical. Numb. Then the knife slipped. A sharp sting. Bright red bloomed across my fingertip, dripping onto the pristine white countertop. Book 3. Chapter 5. I pressed a paper towel silently against the cut on my finger and worked quickly, arranging everything onto trays to carry out. Lucas Harlan frowned slightly as he noticed the wound on my hand. How can you mess up something so simple? It's Lila's birthday, what bad luck, he muttered. I just clutched the sketchbook I'd retrieved from the shelf and hurried toward the door, desperate to leave. But Lila Voss suddenly looped her arm through mine. Don't go yet, Emma. You've finished everything, stay and have cake with us. In the center of the living room, a 3-tiered cake glowed with lit candles. Guests gathered around Lila, singing happy birthday. I stood at the edge of the crowd, an outsider in my own home. After Lila blew out the candles, Lucas took her hand and cut the first slice, then turned and offered it to me. Emma, he said, his voice smooth but distant, you worked hard today. You deserve the first piece. I looked at Lila's saccharine smile and didn't take it. Before I could step back, a pair of hands shoved me hard from behind. I twisted to avoid falling, but my momentum carried me forward, straight into the cake stand. A bamboo skewer meant to hold the tiers together pierced deep into my shoulder. Emma! Lila gasped, rushing over with wide eyes. She grabbed my arm to steady me, but beneath her concern flickered something sharp, satisfaction. Thank goodness it's just a small wound. A few guests snickered. She can't even stand straight. What a mess. Someone get a video, this is gold. Serves you right for trying to steal Lucas from Lila. I stood frozen, blood mixing with melting frosting down my blouse, humiliated and trembling. Lucas's expression softened for a split second. He started to shrug off his jacket, probably to cover me, but Lila leaned into him, pressing her palm to his chest. Lucas, look, she whispered, holding up her hand. I think I cut myself too. His attention snapped to her instantly. Without another glance at me, he called out to the maid lingering near the hallway. Take Ms. Rivers to the medical room. The maid nodded and guided me away. The bleeding stopped soon enough, but no amount of scrubbing could wash away the stain of shame. Outside, the party roared on, laughter, clinking glasses, music swelling. My phone buzzed. Lila's just staying a few days. I'll pick you up in a few days and bring you home. Here's $50,000 as compensation. Once I calm her mother down, I'll divorce her immediately and remarry you. Guilt, finally catching up to him. But I didn't care anymore. I transferred the money back, wrapped a scarf over the wound on my shoulder, and slipped out through the villa side gate. On the plane, I blocked Lucas Harlan's number. Hours passed. Only when the cake's frosting had nearly melted into a puddle did Lucas realize I was gone. He grabbed the nearest servant, voice sharp with panic. Where's Emma Rivers? The maid flinched. Ms. Rivers, left through the back door after her bandage was changed. Left? Lucas froze. He fumbled for his phone and dialed. A robotic voice answered. The number you have dialed is powered off. Book 3. Chapter 6. His chest tightened inexplicably. He reopened his transaction history. That $50,000 transfer still sat there, untouched, marked clearly as unaccepted by the recipient. Frustrated, he raked his fingers through his hair. Lucas. Come cut the cake. Lila Voss called out, holding up the newly delivered dessert, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. Emma's gone, he said flatly. His expression darkened. Lila's hand stilled mid-motion over the cake knife. Then, with practiced innocence, she tilted her head. Gone? Oh, maybe she was just too heartbroken. It's all my fault, if only I hadn't thrown this birthday party today. Did you tell your friend to push her? He asked, voice low. Lila's face flickered, just for a second, before she pouted, eyes welling with tears. Lucas, how could you think that of me? It was chaotic in there. Maybe my friend just bumped into her by accident. Don't treat me like a fool, Lila. The room fell dead silent. Guests exchanged uneasy glances. Tears spilled over instantly. Lucas Harlan. You're yelling at me? You agreed to all of this just minutes ago. Now that she's gone, you're blaming me? Are you regretting it? He froze. Regret? He just hadn't expected Emma to actually disappear like this. No matter how many times he'd chosen Lila over her, how many times he'd let her down, Emma had always come back. At worst, she'd give him a few days of cold silence before forgiving him. I was just putting on a show, he muttered, tugging at his tie. She insisted on coming today to get her things instead of going home. I didn't mean to actually drive her away. A show? Lila let out a sharp laugh. Lucas, get this straight, I'm your wife now. We got married yesterday. And you're yelling at me in front of everyone, for your ex? If your mother hadn't threatened to kill herself, would we have rushed into this? He snapped. The words hung in the air. Both of them went still. Lila's face drained of color. Tears streamed faster down her cheeks. So you never wanted to marry me. You're still thinking about Emma, aren't you? Then go find her. But as he looked at Lila's tear-streaked, smudged makeup, Lucas's mind drifted elsewhere, to Emma's pale face as she walked out, to the blood seeping through her blouse at the shoulder. She must have been in so much pain. Yet she hadn't made a sound. Just left, quiet and steady. He'd failed her. He cared, more than he'd ever admitted, and still pretended he didn't. Think whatever you want, he said wearily. He turned and stepped onto the balcony, dialing his assistant. Find out where Emma went. Her phone's off. 10 minutes later, Lucas's assistant Derek called back. Sir, I tracked it. Ms. Rivers boarded a flight 2 hours ago. Destinations restricted, I don't have clearance for full passenger details, but she booked first class. First class? Lucas stared at his phone, stunned. For 7 years together, Emma had always flown economy. She never splurged. Where did she get the money for a first-class ticket? And where was she even going? She had no family or friends outside Denver. A cold sense of losing control crept over him. Then it hit him, when she left, she'd taken nothing. Not his money. Not their shared belongings. Just that old sketchbook from her grandmother. She'd walked away with nothing. Clean. Final. This time, she meant it. Keep digging, he barked into the phone, his voice cracking with a panic he didn't realize he was showing. Find her. No matter what it takes. He hung up and stared into the black Colorado night. Lucas knew, deep in his gut. Emma wasn't coming back. Book 3. Chapter 7. Lucas Harlan stood on the balcony for a long time, until the night wind chilled his fingertips. When he returned to the living room, the birthday party had already ended. Lila Voss sat on the sofa, eyes red-rimmed. The moment she saw him enter, she turned her face away. What's so special about her that you're acting like a ghost? She asked. Lucas didn't answer. His gaze fell on the corner of the sofa, the spot where Emma Rivers always sat. Her cushion was still there, perfectly placed. He remembered how she'd curl up there with a book, often falling asleep mid-page, the book slipping silently to the floor. His phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. Mr. Harlan, we tracked Ms. Rivers' credit card activity. She stayed last night at the Broadmoor Hotel near the airport. The Broadmoor, Denver's most exclusive 5-star hotel. Lucas frowned. When they'd traveled together, Emma had always been careful with money, choosing modest lodgings, never splurging on luxury. He grabbed his car keys and headed for the door. Lila chased after him. "Where are you going this late?" she demanded. "Business." "You're going to find her, aren't you?" She stepped in front of the door, blocking his path. "I won't let you go." For the first time, Lucas didn't hide his impatience. "Move." "Lucas Harlan, get this straight, I'm your wife now." "Legally." "Legally?" He gave a cold laugh. "You know better than anyone how this marriage happened." Lila went pale, her lips pressed tight, trembling. Lucas brushed past her and walked straight to the elevator. On the drive, he dialed Emma's number again and again. Every call went straight to voicemail. At the hotel, the front desk refused to give him any information, citing guest privacy. But a manager recognized him. "Mr. Harlan? Ms. Rivers left a note for you." Inside the envelope was a single slip of paper. Emma's neat, familiar handwriting read, "Lucas, I'm gone. This time it's real. Don't look for me. Take care of your new marriage." That was it. Not even an exclamation, just a calm, final period. Lucas immediately called his assistant. "Find her. Check every place she might go, her parents' house, her friends' places, anywhere." "Sir. Ms. Rivers only listed you as her emergency contact. The home address on file is still that old Aurora loft she rented 7 years ago." Lucas stood frozen, phone in hand. 7 years of marriage, and he didn't even know where her parents lived. She'd mentioned once that they'd moved south for business long ago, but he'd never asked which city, never cared how they were doing. Now it hit him, in all those years, he'd never truly asked about her world, where she came from, who raised her, what shaped her. His phone rang again. "Lila." He silenced it without looking and sped toward the Rocky Mountain News Network offices in downtown Denver. Chapter 28. Book 3. Chapter 8. Hannah Ellis was at her desk, packing a cardboard box, when she saw him approach. She immediately ducked her head, her movements flustered. "Mr. Harlan." "Hannah," Lucas Harlan said, his voice urgent. "Has Emma mentioned anything to you about where she might go? Do you know where her parents actually live?" Hannah shook her head and spoke softly. "Emma never really talked about her family. I only know her parents run a small business down south somewhere. That's all. She's always been really private, never brought it up." Lucas's heart sank. He turned to leave, but Hannah called after him. From the box, she pulled out a thick notebook wrapped carefully in craft paper. "Mr. Harlan, this was left in Emma's desk drawer." He took it and peeled back the paper. Inside was a meticulously hand-bound travel journal, 7 volumes in all. The first cover read, "Honeymoon Year 1 with Lucas." Beneath it were neatly labeled sequels, Year 2, Year 3, all the way through Year 7. His hands trembled as he opened the most recent one. Inside, Emma had drawn a detailed map of Paris by hand, marking every boutique she wanted to visit, every dish she hoped to try. She'd even pasted in magazine clippings beside her notes. On the page featuring the Eiffel Tower, she'd written in bright-colored pencil, "Finally getting to see it with him." But in the bottom right corner, the ink was blurred, clearly smudged by tears. Lucas leaned against the cold office wall and slowly slid to the floor. Those 7 journals felt like 7 sharp slaps across his face. Lila Voss stood in the doorway, watching him with cold disdain. "The whole newsroom staring," she said flatly. "If you keep acting like this, Lucas, I'll tell your mom the truth about our marriage." He looked up, his eyes hollow and exhausted. "Go ahead. You don't even care about your own mother anymore?" "I want her," he said, each word deliberate. "I only want Emma Rivers." He bolted from the station and drove aimlessly through the city, stopping at every place they'd shared, the old bookstore where they'd browsed together, the corner cafe she loved, the quiet park where they'd walked on their first date. Each spot was empty, no trace of her. Finally, almost without thinking, he parked outside the Boulder County Courthouse. He remembered their civil wedding 7 years ago. Emma had worn a simple white dress. Her voice had cracked as she recited her vows, her eyes glistening with tears and hope as she looked at him. Only now did he understand what he'd lost. His phone buzzed. A bank alert. Emma had refunded every dollar he'd ever transferred to her over the years, including the $50,000 compensation he'd sent after the divorce. Every cent, returned in full. The memo attached to the transfer read just 3 words. "We're even." Lucas gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Then he took a deep breath and dialed his lawyer. "Miles, it's Lucas Harlan. I need to file for divorce. Immediately." Chapter 29. Book 3. Chapter 9. The plane touched down in the warm, humid air of southern Colorado, a stark contrast to Denver's dry, biting cold. Mom was waiting for me at the gate. The moment she saw me, her eyes welled up, and she pulled me into a tight hug. "You're home," she whispered. "That's all that matters." The Rivers estate looked exactly as I'd left it 7 years ago, sprawling, grand, unchanged. Yet I felt oddly out of place, even disoriented, as we drove from the front gate to the house in the family golf cart. Dad sat in the living room, reading the paper through his reading glasses. When I walked in, he set it down and studied me with a furrowed brow. "You've lost weight," he said bluntly. "And you look exhausted. If you were hurting out there, why didn't you come home sooner?" My throat tightened. For 7 years, I'd swallowed every humiliation to protect Lucas Harlan's fragile ego, never once letting my parents see the cracks. I'd always called with good news, never the truth. The next day, I visited Dad's company in Colorado Springs. In 7 years, Rivers Enterprises had grown into an industry leader, stronger, sharper, more respected than ever. "Take a good look," Dad said, pride softening his usual stern tone. "All of this will be yours someday. At least I won't be the one who let the family legacy die." I took a deep breath. "Dad, if I start learning now, is it too late?" He blinked, then broke into a wide, relieved smile. "Too late? Don't be ridiculous. You're my daughter, you'll master it in no time." I threw myself into the work. Days filled with meetings, supply chains, and production lines kept my mind occupied. But at night, alone in my childhood room, memories of betrayal and humiliation crept in unbidden, Lucas's dismissals, Lila's taunts, the sting of being treated like a ghost in my own life. My chest would ache, tight and hollow. I knew healing wouldn't happen overnight. I changed all my contact information, giving my new number to only a few trusted people, Hannah Ellis among them. She called me one evening, voice hushed but urgent. "Emma, Lucas has gone completely off the rails. He's been showing up at the station, demanding to know where you are. He cornered me 3 times, I didn't tell him a thing." She added, almost gleefully, "And Lila? She's been assigned your old show, but she can't handle it. Ratings are tanking. Everyone's furious." I listened quietly. Inside, I felt nothing, not anger, not satisfaction. Just distance. Their chaos was no longer mine. Over a month after I'd returned home, I was in the Pueblo workshop, deep in conversation with Earl Thompson, the senior technician, about a new irrigation prototype. My assistant, Sophia, approached quickly, her expression uneasy. "Ms. Rivers," she said, lowering her voice, "there's a man outside asking to see you. Says his name is Lucas Harlan." My pulse jumped, just for a second, before settling back into calm. He'd found me. I walked to the visitor's lounge but paused outside the glass door. Through it, I saw Lucas standing near the window. He'd lost weight. His suit was rumpled, his hair uncombed. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his posture sagged with exhaustion. He stared out at the dry Colorado plains like a man who'd walked 1,000 miles and still wasn't sure he'd arrived. I pushed the door open. He turned instantly, his gaze locking onto mine. "Emma." His voice was rough, tentative, as if afraid I might vanish. "I finally found you." Book 3. Chapter 10. I didn't speak. I just looked at him calmly, as if he were a stranger. "How have you been?" he asked. He took a step forward, trying to close the distance between us. "Fine," I replied. I stepped back half a pace, widening the space between us, my voice cool and distant. "What do you need, Mr. Harlan?" The formality hit him like a slap. His body stiffened, and a flicker of pain crossed his face. "Emma, don't do this," he said urgently. "I know I was wrong, terribly, unforgivably wrong." He rushed on, desperation edging his voice. "Lila and I are divorced. I called my lawyer the same day I left the station. The papers are signed. Everything with her, it was all an act to make you jealous. I was an idiot, a monster. Come back with me. Let's remarry. I swear." "Swear what?" I cut in, almost laughing. "That the next time your precious first love needs you, you won't ditch me for the 101st time? That you won't team up with outsiders to laugh at my expense? That you won't stand by while someone treats me like a maid, and then criticize me for not serving well enough?" With every question, his face grew paler. "No, Emma, none of that was real, it was Lila and her friends who—" "Lucas," I interrupted again, exhaustion weighing heavier than anger. "It doesn't matter anymore whether it was real or not. The moment you signed those divorce papers, it was over." "I didn't mean it," he burst out. "I thought you were just upset. 7 years of marriage, can it really be undone just because? Because you used my honeymoon itinerary to plan your getaway with someone else?" I finished for him, voice steady. "Because you let your new wife and her friends humiliate me at her birthday party? Because you watched me get hurt and didn't lift a finger?" I studied him. My chest no longer ached the way it used to. There was only numbness now. "Lucas, love runs out. And over these 7 years, especially this past month, you've drained every last drop I ever had for you." He swayed like a man gutted, muttering hoarsely, "No, that can't be. You still love me, Emma." "That was the old me," I said. I took a deep breath and pointed toward the door. "Now, please leave. Don't interfere with my life. Don't come looking for me again. We're even. It's done." Just then, my assistant opened the door and stepped in. "Ms. Rivers," she said respectfully, "the chairman would like to see you." Lucas stared at me, then at her, his expression stunned. He couldn't reconcile the woman before him, addressed as Ms. Rivers, summoned for executive decisions, with the frugal, devoted wife who'd once waited up nights for him in their Denver condo. You work here?" he asked, voice rough. "Not work," I corrected, tone flat. "I'm home. I'm inheriting the family business." I didn't wait to see his face. Turning on my heel, I followed my assistant out of the meeting room. My steps were firm. I didn't look back. I already knew, the moment I'd boarded that flight out of Denver, my life had turned a new page. Book 3. Chapter 11. After our tense confrontation in the company's reception room, Lucas Harlan didn't leave town. Instead, he rented an apartment near my office and began his pursuit. He no longer barged into my workplace unannounced. This time, he changed tactics. Every morning, a fresh bouquet of white lilies, my favorite flower once, appeared on my desk. No note accompanied it, but I knew who left it. Security had mentioned it more than once. A tall man in a dark coat slipped in before dawn, placed the flowers at the front desk, and vanished. He also started showing up near my parents' neighborhood, always by chance. One afternoon, he intercepted my mother as she returned from the market, holding a box of premium bird's nest, a delicacy meant to restore health. "Aunt Maggie," he said earnestly, "Emma used to be so delicate. This might help her regain her strength." My mother looked at him, sighed, and didn't take the gift. "Lucas," she said gently, "go home. Emma may seem soft, but she's stubborn as stone. Once she's made up her mind, not even 9 oxen can pull her back." She added, almost casually, "Besides, this brand's too cheap. She wouldn't even taste it." He even tracked down my weekly routine, how I visited a quiet bookstore every Wednesday night. He began appearing there, sitting just far enough away not to intrude, watching me read in silence. When I closed my book and walked out, he followed a few steps behind, lingering until I passed through the gates of my building. His quiet, omnipresent attention became a weight, an invisible pressure I couldn't shake. I'd told him clearly, it was over. But he seemed trapped in his own fantasy, convinced this was just another one of my moods. If he stayed sincere long enough, he believed, I'd eventually come back. Then, one evening, Hannah Ellis called. Her voice trembled with barely contained panic. "Emma. Something huge just happened. Lila's gone completely off the rails." It turned out that while Lucas had been chasing me in southern Colorado, he'd neglected his company in Denver. Shareholders were already restless. But Lila Voss, after realizing Lucas had not only divorced her swiftly but had abandoned everything to follow me, snapped. Using confidential documents she'd accessed during her brief time as Mrs. Harlan, she filed a formal, public complaint against Harlan Corporation. The allegations included serious tax evasion and unethical business practices. "Denver's in chaos." Hannah's voice shook. The Department of Revenue and Commerce Bureau raided the office. All corporate accounts are frozen. Major projects halted overnight. Stock prices crashed. And Evelyn, Lucas's mom, had a heart attack from the stress and is in the hospital. The board's demanding he return immediately. If he doesn't fix this, they're voting him out. I hung up, conflicted. I'd hated Lucas. I'd resented him. But I'd never wished for his ruin. The next day, he came to see me. This time, there was no remorseful charm, no careful words of reconciliation. He looked hollowed out, unshaven, bloodshot eyes, his suit wrinkled, the sharp scent of whiskey clinging to him. "Emma." His voice was raw. "The company's collapsing. My mom's in the hospital. I have to go back to Denver. Now." I met his gaze calmly. "So?" He flinched as if struck. He reached for my hand, I stepped back. His eyes pleaded. "Come with me. Please. You're the only one who can help. Your family has connections, your dad knows people who can make this go away. Just, say a word for me. After everything we've been through, 7 years." I looked at him, and for the first time I saw not the man I'd loved, but a stranger drowning in consequences of his own making. "Lucas," I said clearly, "your company, your mess, it's between you and Lila. It has nothing to do with me. I won't go back with you. And I won't ask anyone for your sake." The last spark in his eyes died. What remained was ash gray, defeated. "You're really this cold-hearted?" "It's not coldness," I replied. "It's a boundary. The moment you signed those divorce papers, your life stopped being mine to carry." In the end, his assistant and a board representative practically escorted him onto a flight back to Denver. Later, through headlines and Hannah's fragmented updates, I learned what became of them. Harlan Corporation, faced with irrefutable evidence, was hit with massive penalties. The company never recovered. Lucas sold off nearly everything, his condo, his car, even his shares, to cover debts, but it wasn't enough. The board ousted him in a unanimous vote. Evelyn's health never improved. Lucas tried to start over, but with a tarnished reputation and crushing liabilities, no investor would touch him. Word was, he was living in a modest apartment near Aurora, barely scraping by. As for Lila, her revenge backfired. She faced legal action for malicious reporting and leaking trade secrets. Her name became toxic in Denver social circles. She fled back to Aspen in disgrace, and rumor had it she was working odd jobs, her family cutting ties. Sunlight streamed through my office window in Colorado Springs. I looked down at the document in my hands, a newly signed proposal for Rivers Enterprises' next brand expansion. My expression was calm. Steady. The past was truly behind me. My future lay here, in my own hands, bright, unburdened, and entirely new.